There's a young single gal who comes to our church. She's pregnant, single. She goes, "Your ads, there was something about them that drew me here."
All right, man. Thanks for this.
I'm genuinely honored to be here, so I really appreciate it. It's really cool. And when you guys reached out, I was like, okay, let's do this. Let's do it.
So you guys planted your church back in 2015. Like, how did that happen?
It was a different road to the church planting kind of journey for us. My wife and I didn't plan setting out on this place at all. I wish she was here because she's like an intimate part of this story. But we were worship pastors, had been in ministry for a long time, loved leadership, communication, felt like God calling us to go towards, hey, I was going to be a lead pastor somewhere.
Yeah.
And then through a radical series of events, God sort of put us at a declining small church. And we'd been at very large churches prior to this. And so we're at this church going, okay, God, we're here. How do we try to bring some life to it? And early on in the process, Holy Spirit put a thought into our head of going, what if we sold this place, this building, and started something brand new? Because the culture wasn't us and everything that we knew, they weren't. And so there were some challenges there that really kind of played into who we were going to become as a church. It reminded us growing up, like church was complicated. Church, leadership sometimes can be a little iffy, unhealthy. Church can be a lot more inward focused. And we're like, hey, those are none of the things we are.
Yeah.
So that thought was like, hey, what if we just had a clean slate? But that was not going to happen in our minds. Like, God, nice thought, move on. But God had something in store for us with it. And so significant event happened where we wanted to maximize that resource we had of a building. We weren't really impacting our community because everybody kind of drove in. So we approached another church that had been about a year and a half old, going, hey, we've got space. What if you rented from us? It'll just kind of help us. So they were very different than we were. So they came in, and I'll never forget that first Sunday they had service. Their lead deacon comes running up to us, and he's like, hey, we forgot something in our joint use agreement. And he's like, if you ever go to sell the building, we want to have first shot at doing it. My wife and I had never shared that thought with anybody. And here he is kind of saying, hey, what if?
Yeah.
And so for us, that was kind of like, okay, God, maybe there's something here. And then fast forward a little bit further, and we had a group of people at the church that really started to catch on to the type of church that was very outward looking, very gospel centered, reaching people for the community. And they started to kind of crystallize around this idea of doing it. And so in that season, all of a sudden the tide turned. We lost some people, which was great. And the church said, hey, let's go for it. Let's sell this place. And we were creatively able to help the other church get in and make it happen because we own the building outright.
Nice.
So it was a win-win for them and for us. So we needed, some significant upfront money to plant a church, to get everything going. So we do. In that season along that way, my wife, she was praying, and I think really the Holy Spirit spoke to her, and she spoke to me, which all husbands should take that and run with it. But she's like, hey, you need to reach out to somebody who's boots on the ground done this. And so I reached out to a friend who I'd worked with on staff with, who had planted a church a few years earlier. It was called Thrive. And he said, hey, why don't you and your wife come on down, you and Sally come down, check out our church, meet with our team, just see what we're all about and go from there. So we went down there, we hung out, and in the midst of all of that, they were like, hey, why don't you join us, become part of a network, basically share resources. We'll give you everything that we have. So God was really setting up some things, because we did not think we would ever church plant. But he really put this idea in our hearts, be like, hey, we want you to do something. So the funding all of a sudden was taken care of. We had a tribe of people that was going to walk alongside us, and that was huge. And that's church planting. And we didn't fit the traditional way to go through it. We didn't want to wait 18 months and go through the things and talk. I mean, we talked to all the organizations, but we just didn't fit the traditional way. And so God goes, I want this to happen, and I'm calling you and Sally to do this. And so that was the journey. And then in 2014, we started doing sort of the preview stuff. We had 30 people, 30 adults, 10 kids, 3 of which were mine and Sally's. And we started to track some people along the way in those early days. And then January 2015, we launched, and we had 270 some people there that day. The next week, reality hit. And then it's been a journey, though. We're 10 years old now, just 2 weeks ago. And we've seen some pretty incredible things just even in the last couple of years. The last year, especially just working with ChurchCandy. And so it's been a really fascinating journey for us as we kind of caught the heart of who we wanted to be, the vision we had. For us, it's this idea of simple, fun, and real. We had this way we were talking to our kind of launch team. That's what we called everybody when we kind of moved in that journey. But the Thrive Network helped us get some language to it. And it fit with Sally and I, because growing up, we saw complicated things and duty and simple. For us, we kind of describe it this way, and people resonate when we share this. Church should add to your life. It shouldn't complicate it. So how do we keep things simply about Jesus in terms of what we do? Fun is medicine for the soul. And so how do we bring the sense of community and joy to what we do? And real, let's just be authentic about who we are and connect real life to what the real gospel in Jesus is all about. And so people love it. They resonated with it. And it's been quite the journey over the last 10 years.
Yeah, I love that, man. I love that. So you guys were already in the area where you're at Vacaville, right?
We were.
Yeah. And so what was that like? I know that's, you hear a lot about church planting in the South where, everyone's a Christian, right? And so what was it like planting that church and pastoring people outside of that context?
Yeah, so Vacaville, California is in Northern California. It is right between San Francisco and Sacramento. And so we are in a very unchurched place. God called us there. We were in the area for about 10 years before we started Thrive. And so we knew the community along the way. But it is different, as I thought about it, there is sort of a cultural Christianity. It's just more accepted, in other places. And out by us, there really is an indifference and somewhat of an antagonism towards it. But as I really thought about this, I was trying to think through, like, how do we just tell people about what it's like in Northern California? Because I can be in San Francisco in on a great day, 45 minutes. On a normal day, not.
Yeah.
Sacramento is just 35 minutes away. So we're like a bedroom community to both. And so there's just a lot of, there's a lot of just people coming in and out. So there's a lot of transients in the area in terms of just movement. But I think a lot of people are just people underneath. We've served in the Midwest, on churches and staff. That's where we grew up. And then going to California, people are sinners in need of a savior. So if you get down to underneath it all, I think it's the stuff on top that you have to work through that's different from maybe, say, planting in the South versus us. There's a lot more relational dynamics. And it's hard because people are really closed off out there. They do not want to engage at that level. Just even meeting your neighbors, saying hello. I'm kind of weird. I wave at everybody. It's my old Midwest roots, But that kind of change of that progressive mentality, sort of anti-God sentiment. People are spiritual, though. You just have to have that relational kind of connection with them in order to say, hey, I trust you enough that when you introduce the God component to it, they're willing to entertain that conversation. And we've seen some incredible fruit from that. It's just go, hey, let's barbecue first. We're in the South right now. Yeah. We're in Houston, baby. So if we can just build that relationship, that'll open the doors for the gospel to be shared.
Yeah. I love that, man. I love the heart behind it. And I've born and raised in the South. This is kind of all I've ever known. And so whenever I talk to pastors that are in different communities, it's always interesting to hear that perspective. So for you guys, what made you want to reach out to ChurchCandy to begin with?
We were in a season, so it's been about a year that we've been with ChurchCandy, and go back to early 2024, late 2023, when we reached out, and we knew we were on the horizon of 2 services. God had just we'd seen some momentum coming from some different things. And as that was happening, we were going, okay, how do we maximize this moment? And for us, we've done some different, we've done ads, and I make sure I do this, along the way. We'd done some other types of marketing stuff in the past that had been successful, but we were starting to see some of those things not work for us. And so we started to see some of the testimonial stuff you put out and just trying to think it through, going, okay, what can we do in this season? And just as a team, we were like, hey, let's give this a shot to see what consistency is there. And some of the things that you guys did that were unique and the expertise you brought to it that were like, hey, let's give this a shot. And it's been a game changer for us, big time.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Awesome. Why don't you share a little bit about your experience working with our team and stuff? But before we go into that, I want to take a second and tell you about how ChurchCandy is helping over 400 churches get multiple new families visiting every single Sunday. So ChurchCandy will partner with churches. Churches will hire them to set up Facebook and Instagram ads. From there, the ads will invite people to the church, and then new families come so quickly. Like you could turn an ad on a Tuesday with ChurchCandy, and then you already have families showing up that next Sunday. It works really quick, and we're helping over 400 churches all across North America. And I wrote a book that breaks down ChurchCandy's entire strategy called Plan Your Visit Playbook. You can go to planyourvisitplaybook.com/free to get a free copy of the book. This book, whenever we hire someone at ChurchCandy, is their very first assignment to read and do a full report on it. All that being said, we do not gatekeep in this book. This is our entire strategy that has helped over 230,000 people get connected to a local church. And our goal is to get that number to 1 million. And we would love for you to partner with us on that. If you want to schedule a call with someone from the ChurchCandy team to learn more and see if this would be a good fit for your church, you can go to churchcandy.com or hit the first link down below in the description. Now back to the podcast.
Your team has been great, just from the onboarding that we went through, and then the regular communication that they go through. Our account manager is just super responsive in terms of any questions we have, giving us updates in terms of what's going on. Hey, this is the current state of what this last month looked like, and setting things up. So we have absolutely loved working with your team and they're great at responding to my questions. I'm a person to go, hey, what about, and what do you think? And Chris is our guy. And so love working with him. And it's great to have someone in your corner to kind of support you along the way. And that's been the best part of this whole journey.
I love it, man. What kind of fruit have you guys seen in your church since working with ChurchCandy?
Well, this last year, we've grown 70%. In the last year. And the number one thing that we hear from all the new guests that come in are, we've seen your ads, and we see your ads, and we see your ads. And so, you know what, God, obviously something was drawing me through these ads that you guys keep putting out there. And so to all of the guests that are coming in, where it used to be, maybe some other answers about how they found us. Oh, I did a Google search, or I did this or that. Like, the overwhelming response right now is our ads that you guys have been doing for us over the last year. And so that's been the most impactful thing from it.
Do you guys get a lot of people that say, like, I just keep seeing it, like it's every time I turn around? Yeah.
And to me, that's probably the most powerful part of it, is that for us, it's that consistency. And what we realized is that where our church is, like, so we were portable for 5 years, set up and tear down. We got into a space that's our own. That's amazing. And yet it's in a place that, isn't, right on the corner kind of a thing. And so what we realized through the ads and the consistency of them was this idea that people didn't know where we were. And we were inconsistent and getting the word out about who we are. And so people didn't know about what we were about and just kind of the heart of who we were as a church. And so they started to see the consistency of it regularly, week after week, month after month for us over time. And it really did raise an awareness. And that's probably the biggest thing that I would say. We don't look at it as it is marketing, but we really look at it as it's awareness for who we are. And we want to invest in that, because the more aware people are that, hey, there's a life-giving, incredible church that could bring some community and a place and, to just kind of rally around you and help point you to Jesus. It's everything. And so for us, those ads, the consistency has been king for us, without a doubt.
Yeah, man, it's funny. I'll have people that visit our church, and I'm like, yeah, man, how did you hear about Vibrant? And it's funny, like, people will still call me Pastor Brady. Like, I was the student pastor, and now, like, I serve, and, like, maybe once a quarter I'll preach for my pastor if he's out of town. But, like, for the most part, I'm just there. I might do announcements, but they'll be like, man, Pastor Brady, I knew God was calling me here because every time I turned around on Instagram, I kept seeing you. And I would smile and say, like, amen, brother. Like, I believe God was calling you here. Like, I'm so glad you're here, dude. And I mean, we might like laugh about that now, but you know, the nuts and bolts behind the scenes is like if you were to go to Amazon and you're looking for a podcast microphone, right? And then you go to Instagram, what do you see? You see ads for the podcast microphone you were just looking at.
Yep.
And then you go to Facebook and you see it. And it's like every time you turn around, you just keep seeing it. Well, whenever we put that in a spiritual context, I truly believe that, like, okay, Holy Spirit, like, yes, they're going to see these ads because of what we're doing, because we put in the work to make sure that happens, that we're inviting them and we're always in the back of their mind. But all we're doing is planting seeds. And it's like, hey, let's just let Holy Spirit do the rest. And then eventually they're going to feel like, all right, God, you must be calling me to this church because I keep seeing them online. And like, we might laugh about that, but like, I think there's a lot of truth behind that, how God can use social media as a way to bring people into the local church. And I love that you guys are seeing that.
Just this last Sunday, lady came up to me after second service, and she's like, hey, thank you for today. This is incredible. I needed it. She goes, and I couldn't get away from seeing you guys. Literally her language. I couldn't get away from seeing you guys. And it was really, she goes, I'd gotten away from church. I'd gotten clean and sober. And I really felt like God was going, there's something missing that you need to, you've taken one step, you need to take the next step. And so she's coming. We do a thing called the 3-week challenge at Thrive. And so you can get a taste in 1 week, but really get a feel in 3. And so she's like, hey, I'm going to take your 3-week challenge and see what's going on. And she said, it was the ad that I really felt like God was speaking through. So it is exactly how it works for us. And it happened last Sunday.
I love that, man. I love that. So how is this different compared to some other marketing or digital outreach things you guys would do online or trying to get people in?
Yeah. So, we were big direct mail people early on, and we saw success from it. Our direct mailers were very much, they stood out. They were custom for us, and they did great. We just, the return on that investment, just, for the outlay that you put into it it's not great. And we saw that sort of kind of saturate over time for us. And our inconsistency and lack of really understanding the social space, unless you really have people that are kind of immersed in understanding some of the behind the scenes way of working with it, we just weren't successful in it. We would do stuff and it was more event oriented, not consistent. And that was killing us. So we never really heard anybody go, we found you on social.
Yeah.
If a personal invite person said, hey, this is what's going on, like that personal invite thing, which is still, indisputably one of the most effective ways to get people to show up to church is personal invite. But we were like, okay, this just isn't working. So those things just didn't translate for us. Nobody ever said, I saw you on Facebook. It just didn't happen. And so that's why we were like, hey, how could we do this differently? And that's when we reached out to you guys to go, we need some help in this. And the fruit speaks for itself at this point.
I love that, man. I love that. So you guys have, after 1 year working with ChurchCandy, grew by 70%.
70%.
What kind of fruit on like anecdotal, just individual level have you seen of individual people that found your church from social media ads that like God has done a difference in their lives? Like, do you have any specific stories?
I do. I can tell you a few. I told you the one, but there's a young single gal who I'll just say her name is M, and she comes to our church. She's pregnant, single, and she's comes once. We talk with her. Our church is super engaging. We're like. There's a book called Unreasonable Hospitality that's just kind of, we try to build through our mentality of things. And she didn't come back for a week or two. She came back again. She goes, there's just something about this place. And we got to know her a little bit. And she goes, your ads, there was something about them that drew me here. And then once I got here, it just connected me in a different way. She goes, but I really felt like, what are people going to think? Because of, I'm a single, no, not married, I'm pregnant. But your church just enfolded me in a way that's incredible. Our young adults came along around her to surround her. She's literally radically, you can see her change. She's got community now. She's got a family that's supporting her in a way that she needs because she doesn't really have anybody out in our area to help her. She has nothing. And all of a sudden our church shows up and they're like, hey, here's the car seat.
That's huge.
Here's this, here's the stroller, here's this. And so she will tell you, because of some ads, and God working through them, she goes, it's beyond I couldn't even imagine that this is what was going to take place. And it's all because of a ChurchCandy ad that she kept seeing, that she felt, you know what, I'm going to take this bold step of faith to kind of get involved. And so that's probably one of it's an incredible story. There are other people that are on serving teams now, that came because of that. People who have gotten baptized that they're like, hey, I didn't even know you guys were here. And so they come in. So those are just some of the incredible moments we're going, hey, the fruit from the ads is an amazing thing.
I love that. So you guys are getting some new guests because they're finding you on social media.
Yep.
What are you doing to get people to come back again next week and getting them connected?
So 2 parts to it for us. We have a connect team that's kind of skilled and designed to be really engaged with. So once they come in the door for us, we try to have a personal connection to reach them. Again, we're in California, so it's a little bit different. People are very hesitant to give out info, to reveal stuff. So we have to do more of a one-to-one. I get to connect with you. Our connect team's really good at this, and they get information, and then they'll actually put the information into our system.
So it's not like, hey, fill out this connect card.
We do.
Okay.
But let's just be blunt. Our connect card fill out rate from announcements. I mean, we're talking about it everywhere constantly is not there, but we're going, hey, but if I get your personal information, or kids check-in is the gift of all gifts for us. Yeah. You know what I mean? So once we get that information, obviously we've got a process that we walk through in terms of reaching out to them immediately, having some, digital ways that we connect with them. We have some personal, phone call type stuff to try to reach out that way. We found that personal texting really is the most effective way to engage with people. And so those are the main things that we do. Then we've got, the typical things that churches will do. We've got an Explore Thrive sort of 15-minute kind of connect with the pastors event that we do. Our on-ramp is our sort of pathway to kind of really bridge to get in and know more of who we are. And we do partnership at the church. And so if you want to become a partner, that's kind of a path to kind of get involved and get on a team. And our connect team will if you want to be on a team, we'll get you on a team. We don't need to wait for all of that stuff, because if we can engage you on a team, get you in a group, then we're going, hey, we're winning, because you're going to find community and you're going to grow. So those are some of the things that we do to try to make that happen.
I love that, man. I love that. It's so funny. I'll give announcements at least once a month at our church. And I will literally be looking from the stage, looking at new guests in the eye, say, hey, we've got a connect card. You can fill it out. And they're just staring at me. And they're like, I'm not going to give. Just people are hesitant nowadays. And
they are.
I like how you guys go in and do that and are intentional about, getting that in. Let's talk about groups. Do you guys have life groups? And is that a big way to get people connected?
It is. So for us, we have Thrive groups that we have. And we offer them seasonally. So we do a spring season that's just about to kick off for us. We do one in the fall and then in the summertime. And it's a great way for us, especially as we're growing now. They're just becoming more, intentional for us to really go, hey, how do we maximize these? And so we've got groups that run the range of interest stuff. Again, simple, fun, and real for us. How do we do some things that really just build community? How do we do some things that just get people connected? And then how do we do some things that really kind of get into the heart of, people finding some hope, finding some healing, the Bible stuff. And so that's become sort of the place. If we can get you into a group and you can find the community to really surround you, kind of like the story of Em. She's got our young adults, and their group to really kind of surround her. So for us, that is a central piece, especially as we grow. That's going to become even more important for us as that sort of place to go, these are your people.
Yeah.
And do life with them. And then you'll really see some incredible fruit from the community and the growth that you'll experience in your life.
Yeah. So we were talking earlier before we pressed record. You and my dad are the same age. And so how
you had to bring it up.
I know. Well, the reason why I say that is because going into there is some wisdom in just you and the season of life that you're in. How old were you guys when you planted the church?
We were in our early 40s,
Yeah.
my wife and I, when we planted.
So I mean,
not the norm.
Might
for
be like
church
10
planting.
years over the average from a lot of like the church planters that we work with. What was that like, church planting, whenever you're a little bit more seasoned than some other guys?
So I think there's probably some that we had the wisdom and we've been through some things to help guide us. I think probably the skill that we learned the most that is perseverance. We knew to really trust God in seasons and moments that when you're younger, you're still learning that skill.
Yeah.
And so for us, that was there. We just knew how to navigate things differently. I don't know. It's interesting because you just bring a different mindset and a different wisdom to it. We would have loved to have that energy of 10 years earlier, but that's different. But it also changes how you interact with people. So for us, we're talking, we had middle schoolers at the time, and my kids went into high school. My oldest went into high school, my twin girls. And so it does change, like, what people see, what stage of life you're in. So it just kind of customizes things. And I think that's probably the thing I would say to any church planter is God's uniquely called you, gifted you, and placed you in seasons. And so use that, for us, the things that God did even when we were, because we didn't plan on even being in ministry. That wasn't our thing. My wife's a civil engineer. I worked at a consulting firm out of college. The fact that we planted a church is just the furthest thing from our mind, but it does change. Honestly, I think the biggest thing is really is just that we've just experienced some more of what God has done. And so that just gives a little bit more of a breadth of foundation upon which to hold on to, because church planting it's hard. Yeah. It is hard work, and to be able to navigate through that. I would say the fact that my wife and I do things as a team really give us a strength that is an asset for how we do it. And then having that church planting, team of the Thrive Network around us. So it was an incredible journey. It's been a blessing. The fact that we're at 10 years and we're seeing some growth that we're seeing like now, it's only God. It's only God.
Yeah. Man, that's huge. Something that I've always heard, and I've even repeated this, but like oftentimes you're going to attract who you are.
Yep.
So if you are someone in your early 30s and you have young kids, as a pastor or church planter, you're going to attract young families with young kids. Did you guys kind of see that you were attracting other families with kids your similar age?
I know that's a common belief, okay? And there's some truth to that, but I would like to push back on that just kind of as a whole, because I think the environment and the culture you create and the leaders that you put in other areas can kind of mitigate that a little bit. Like even now, just seeing some of the young families that are showing up, my youngest is 18 at this point, and so it just changes the dynamic. So I think it's somewhat true, but I think it's not always true. And I think as churches are strategic and going, hey, we can become, and we had a target that we were shooting for. So let's be clear. We knew all the things and we followed all the kind of steps, but we did see going, why are we reaching this group of people? Like we're seeing a little bit more of this age group or this kind of stage of life. And so it wasn't so, we're kind of really closely aligned with what season and stage that we were in. We didn't see that really. We started to see something a little bit bigger. And I think as church planters, I think that's a great way to look at it, to go, wait a minute, I shouldn't just target who I am because hey, I'm older now. We want young families, and we can, based on some of the people and the things that we do and the experience we bring. That's one of the things we see with like our young adults. I'm a assistant cross country and track coach at the local high school. Keeps me connected with some of the students and the youth and families there. And so there's different ways to kind of build those bridges, and we've got to be really strategic in going, what are those places that we can help make these on-ramps so that, we're not so, we're young families. It's like God might have something bigger in store for you to do based on who you're called to be and what you love and where you put yourself.
Yeah. 10 years in, what advice would you give to younger Andy whenever he was first starting to plant the church?
What advice? That's a great question.
This is off the cuff. I didn't say this.
This is. You didn't. We have a saying in our family, and I'll have to explain it, but God is slow. And by that we mean God has his own time. God has his own way. God has his own process. And am I in line enough with God to trust that if he's working that out, that I can wait? Because Sally and I both are like, let's go. Take the hill. Let's attack it. Let's move this thing along. And I think there's a danger to go, because early on, in church growth model, there's different ways to approach it. A lot of them is the launch big one. And that was sort of our heart and our desire. And we had a great first Sunday, but we really did kind of settle in to, we were reaching people. But there's a massive Air Force base by us, Travis. And so there's this, like, we've got families that jump in, and we always have families that are PCSing out.
Yeah.
And so there's a constant sort of rotation of things that we experienced. And I think part of it was, God, we're not growing. And I think for me, there was a prayer change that I started to pray a couple years ago that really helped me remind myself of, God, you've got a time for Thrive to do what you want to do. Instead of praying, God, would you grow this church? I'm like, God, would you help us impact people? And I think there's this, in church planting, there's this, like, we got to grow, because and it's like, God, if we impact people, then the church will grow. And for me, it was a mindset. So I wish I could go back to those early days of Andy and go, you know what? Just walk with the path God has. It's going to be different because it's a different path that he used to bring you and Sally into this to begin with. So trust the path that he has you on. And now we're starting to see a lot of fruit from a lot of great years of just foundation and strength of all those years. And so God's moving his work, and Andy, just pray for impact.
Yeah.
And so that's been probably the biggest thing I wish I could go back and tell myself.
Yeah, that's huge. The reason why I like that question is because if it's basically saying, like, oh, if you could go back again and do it, what would you do? Well, the answer is always like, oh, God had the perfect plan for us, and so I wouldn't do anything different.
No, man, dude, if I could go back, there's a lot of things that would change.
What would you change?
What would I change? We did groups too early. On the early days to try to bring, because people wanted them in some fashion. It was like, we shouldn't have done it that soon, because, we were in the probably 120 to 150 range for a while, you know what I mean? So, we were doing well in some capacities, but it's like, don't necessarily need it at that level. Yeah. We should have strategically built community in other ways, which we tried to do. Sometimes needs that people want, that you go, we need to be doing this. I wish we'd have waited.
Yeah.
And not, it's like youth, I'm like, we didn't have the right leaders, but we had, so like we taken that step. It's like, hey, we got to wait, and now, like, it's like, hey, when the time was right, it's like all of a sudden, it's there. So there's probably some things that we jumped the gun on, and that's the temptation, because you go, we need that. It's going to help us reach people. And so there's probably some of those moments that we wish we would have just taken our time with.
For the groups, what do you mean you guys started too early? Like, you weren't at the size where it was
I think so. I think
what?
when you're too small, and for us, it's like everybody still knew everybody in large capacity, even if you were new coming in. So groups really are something that's like, hey, when you get large enough, and now multiple services, like, now I don't know you because you're a first service guy, I'm a second service guy, like, but then all of a sudden, we go to a small group, and then I meet you. Now we find some community together. Well, I think in those early days, sometimes people start groups a little soon when it's not, and so it takes all this energy to do them when you're not at that stage where I think it's required. So I think, when you're in a growth early stage of foundation of, like, 100, 150 people or so, maybe in a little larger than that, if everybody's in one room, everybody knows everybody. Your serving teams really become your groups, and let that become a community focus in addition to, hey, we're serving together. Hey, let's do some things with life together. Yeah. I think it's a little bit different mindset, I think, towards it, and trying to put things in place that you're going to need didn't always serve us well, because it started to take energy away from going, hey, how do we invest in Sundays? How do we make sure that this really kind of has enough economy of scale to build up? And then we desperately need groups, and we love groups, and, growth really happens when you're sitting in a circle more than a row. So I don't know, that it's just a different way of looking at it, looking back.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. So one thing that we've noticed, like, with our own marketing, and one of the reasons why I love doing these podcasts is we can clip this, and it's organic, and it doesn't seem like, if you're just looking into a Zoom camera, I could have paid someone on Fiverr to share some script that AI wrote, right? Well, but you showed this is real. Same thing, like we could take clips from this and use it for Thrive's ads and to reach people in Vacaville, right? So I'm gonna ask you some questions, and my team is going to clip them and test them out as some ads for you guys. Sound good?
I love it. Sounds
All right,
great.
So first question, your church in Vacaville, why should people check it out?
They should check it out because we have an environment where people can be known. People can have space to really encounter God. And we're going to lead them to a place where maybe they can find some purpose, some hope, and some healing.
What's something unique about your church in Vacaville?
We love being a church that's for the community. We call it do good. It comes out of Ephesians. We're created to do good. And so for us, we're out in the community a lot. We have a local elementary school that's a partner. What's awesome is they actually call us a partner with them. And so we engage one of the local schools to be in it, to support them from doing stuff for teachers. We put on events for them. We work with the local food bank. We do things that we want to go, hey, we're here to really bring some good to our community, because in doing that, we get to build some relationships in a way that allows us to have an impact on people. And so that's one of the biggest things that we do to make sure that when you come to our church, that's unique. And we are probably one of the most welcoming churches on the planet. I'm proud of it, and I will state it. I know a lot of churches say it, but we live it and we mean it. You will get a smile and you will have a conversation with multiple people every single week when you walk in our doors.
Sweet. We're going to do one more.
Yep.
Thrive Church in Vacaville. A lot of people are talking about it. Tell us about it. Why should people check it out?
They should check it out because Thrive is simple, fun, and real. And so we want church to be something that's meaningful, that brings some purpose. You get to see yourself in the grander story that's happening in our world. Fun. We want you to experience something in the very core of who you are that brings some joy to your life. And we want to help you navigate maybe through some of the real challenges that life can bring, and show you how God and a faith in Jesus really can put your life on a whole new trajectory. And so that's probably the greatest thing that we could offer, is just this simplicity, this fun, and just going, hey, there's some real joy that we can experience when we do life with Christ together and life together as a church.
I love it. All right, we're going to clip it. Chris, your account manager. We'll make sure we get some new variations of that up and running soon. Do it. Man, before we jump, what would you say to a pastor or a church planter that's considering using ChurchCandy?
Without a doubt, get it. No, I think to me, it really is something that if you're starting and you're not even launched yet, or you're launched now, figure out the way to build it into your budget. Because for us, this one of the things I wish I could change, going back to the beginning. It's like, hey, to have somebody that's a part of our sort of launch team or our early day team to kind of go, hey, we can take care of this piece for you.
Yeah.
You can focus on people. Let us focus on getting the word out about who you are, what you're about. To have that as someone to come alongside you would be a gift.
Yeah.
And you guys are great at just the creativity, helping fit the DNA of the church and kind of building that in. So I would tell any church planter that's out there, make it a part of your launch strategy. It's an essential. It's not an extra.
Yeah.
You have to make it happen.
And then what was your church size when you first started versus now?
Before we started using ChurchCandy, we were probably running about 160 and we're at 300 right now.
It's huge, man. That's huge. Well, you can't go back and do that again because I was a junior in high school when you guys planted. So ChurchCandy did not exist. But
Thank you so much for that.
But it does exist now. It has nothing. You guys are crushing it. You guys are doing great. But I'm a young buck, very ahead of my time, I feel like. But anyways, thanks so much for watching, guys. How can, if any pastor, church planter out there, if they want to get connected, how can they connect with you?
You can find me if you just check out Thrive. I'm on social, andy.bernard.79. I don't know why, but that's just what it gave me. Check me out, and you can hit me up on Instagram, Facebook. Go to thrivechurchca.com. And I'd love to connect in any way they can. If anybody's ever interested in Thrive and what we're about, we're always looking to add to our network of churches and to come alongside. So we'd love to have that conversation with you as well. Even if you're kind of thinking about planting and some of the stuff resonated today, reach out. We'd love to have you hit us up.
So what would you tell a pastor they're hesitant about going all in on social and using that as a means to reach people? Because Meta's evil and they're trying to see our data. And I honestly think as a society, like I think social media has been a net negative on the world. But like, what would you tell a pastor that has that mindset that's not really utilizing it to reach people?
If we're called to go to the world is on social. And so for us, I would tell any pastor going, hey, we can't basically say, you know what, I'm not going to use a medium to reach people. I'm not gonna do that. You have to take that step to go, I want to put myself in the place where the people are so that I have the chance to reach them with the message that they need to hear. So I would tell any pastor going, you need to invest in it. You have to invest in it. We've seen the fruit from it, and it's the proof is clear as far as we're concerned in terms of the impact of ChurchCandy. So I would tell any pastor to go, you know what? Try it and be consistent with it. Give it 6 months. I guarantee you'll see the results from it. You know, if you're willing to put in the work, ChurchCandy's got the system that you will be able to utilize, that you'll see the benefit of it without a question.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this episode. Pastor Andy, thank you so much for joining us. If you want to learn more about ChurchCandy, we'll have a link in the description, and feel free to reach out. We'd love to help your church.